direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
All right, I'm here. Hold on. Okay, I'm here. Oh, you know, it's so nice to relax and sit back after Tuesdays. Okay, well, if you saw Tuesday's show, that was about as close to a meltdown as I hope you ever see. And all I know is I was watching it, and it so does not seem nearly as bad as it seemed while the show was going on. But it certainly seemed horrible. I'm typing something because, of course, am I completely prepared? No, I'm never completely prepared. Hold on a second. Oh, my God, what a show. It's already getting off to a great start. Okay, so I am Billy Masters. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. Of course, what other show would have such rambling at the very beginning? And today is Thursday, July 16th. God, I hope that's the date. Is that the date, Sue O'Connell? Can you nod? Okay, good. Thank you. I don't know. You know, let me just say, so this is show 32, which means we've been doing this for 16 weeks. There are times that it seems to me that it's been, 16 days. Then there are times that it feels like it has been 16 years. And this week has been one of those times. So I had said on Tuesday's show that I would share some of the rejection letters that I've gotten because the rejection letters have been fabulous. Yes, I have the glasses on because I'm old. So most people, when I invite them to be on the show, they say, we'll check, we'll get back to you. Oh, we don't have anything to promote right now because I don't know if you know this, you dizzy queen, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Some people are really glad to have something to do and laugh and have a good time. Those people I love. Some people don't get back to me. Then there are those people who, very, very, very few, who will turn me down. Most of the people who turn me down say it in such a nice way. Oh, we appreciate this, but we take a polite pass. Polite pass is what I get. I've gotten a lot of polite passes in my day. Some people say, let's circle back in a few months. This is the letter from Kathleen Turner's people. Sue's already laughing. Dear Billy, thank you so much for your email and inquiry regarding Kathleen Turner, which we have shared with her. Unfortunately, this is not something she would like to do. That's it. It's not, no, it's a hard no. But then the publicist, to just soften the blow, ends by saying, we wish you the best with Billy Masters Live. She doesn't, but we do. Can I tell you it's maybe the favorite email I have gotten from anyone so far regarding this show? I may mention this repeatedly. I haven't had the balls to invite Miss Faye Dunaway. I wonder. I think she'd be actually more polite. Now, Kathleen and I have met. We've had a very up and down relationship for years, but she's very direct, and you gotta like that. Oh no, there was one other one. Okay, hold on. I need the glasses again. Now, Kathleen Turner, somewhat, an actress of note, not noting much lately, but note. Now you have a letter from Vicki Lawrence. Now you think to yourself, what does Vicki Lawrence have to do? Dear Billy, thank you for your interest in Vicki Lawrence. However, we are going to pass. Vicki is not doing any interviews right now. Also, this would not be something that is of interest to her. You know what, Thelma Harper, Mama? Fine. I was going to swear. Fine. Who needs you? I've been rejected by better people than you. And the irony is we had Bob Mackey on, and we were going to have Bob Mackey on again with Vicki Lawrence Schultz. Do you remember for a while she was Schultz? Okay. Anyway, so moving on. I'm not going to even share a personal anecdote because I think that was as personal as you need from me today. Our first guest, of course, would never say no to me. And the reason she wouldn't say no to me is that I've got so much dirt on her, she wouldn't dare. She's got just as much on me. It is our good friend, our senior news correspondent, NEC editorial commentary news correspondent, but not anchor, Sue O'Connell.
Hello, Billy. I feel like I should turn you down every now and then just so I can get a good buildup like that. The rejection letters. I once got a complaint letter at Bay Windows from a campaign manager. There's your mug. I don't have my mug. You're so good with the tchotchkes. Who compared me in a negative way to who was the Secretary of State under Clinton? What's her name? Albright, Madeleine Albright.
Oh, right.
So
Madeleine Albright, yeah.
Yeah, compared me negatively, like in the middle of Madeleine Albright. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. Yes, good for you with those rejection letters. You keep reaching for the stars. You're going to get them. I believe in you, Billy Masters.
Thank you. Here's the problem. When I started the show, the pandemic was just beginning and nobody had anything to do. So you had the Fran Dreschers, the Jennifer Lewises, the Michelle Lees, the Greg Louganises. Now you're getting turned down. I wouldn't have even asked a Vicki Lawrence Schultz when this show began. Now, we'd invite her.
Yeah.
So, anyway, no, I am a big believer. You probably missed this, but last week I read we were rejected by Cassandra Peterson, Elvira.
Oh no.
And her agent said her schedule is too busy. Busy doing what is what I have to ask. It's not Halloween. She's got 1 month a year.
Very nice. She's a nice person. I spent a little time with Elvira back in the 80s, I think. Very nice.
No, I actually did too. She sold a house in Hollywood. I think, it wasn't West Hollywood, Hollywood. And she had an estate sale. And I'm like, how am I not going to go to Elvira's estate sale? And I got like a little brass candle for $5 and some tchotchkes that I can say were from her. And she was lovely. Sometimes, as you know, and you're in the business, sometimes it's not the star, it's their people.
Oh, no, it's very, very often getting to them, except for the Kathleen Turner.
That is
very clear. It's just, that's a hard no. I really would like to know what she really said in that lovely European deep husk that she has. I would love to know what she said, really. Oh, him.
She's a woman of few words. No.
Him.
So anyway, I wear it as a badge of honor. I enjoy it. I can't wait till Faye Dunaway's rejection comes in. That may come in a voicemail. Anyway, Sue, so we haven't talked for, I don't know, like 3 weeks. I was right before 4th of July, and things have changed, and yet things haven't changed. And Boston and Massachusetts as a whole, we're very fortunate because we are doing fairly well, comparatively speaking. I believe that's because we were so high at the beginning. I think that
is leadership. I mean, when this is done, there'll be issues to pick apart here. But right now, I would say that our leadership in terms of our governor, Charlie Baker, the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, and other mayors and city leaders and town leaders in the greater Boston area reacted quickly because we had one of the first outbreaks. And I think also the schools shutting down early. I think the public schools in Boston were on the early side. We have hundreds of colleges and universities in the greater Boston area, and they shut down early. And the citizens reacted for the most part by complying with regulations. I mean, I know we're going to talk about masks and those not wearing them, but generally, people said, yes, we get the mask thing. We're going to wear it. We're going to stay home. And people adhered to the regulations that our Republican, FYI, governor was laying out. So, we're in phase 3 of opening right now. Movie theaters are opening. Gyms are opening. I think we all believe we'll be back in phase 2 once we get into the fall, because there will be more outbreaks. And we don't know what we're doing with public school for the most part across the state, just like everywhere else. So I would caution folks that, we want to say that we're moving into a second wave, but I think it's safe to say we're still in the same wave. And especially if we look at the country as a whole, not just where you live or I live, but as the United States now, there's no place to go. Trump got his strong borders. No one is taking us in. We can't leave the country.
Right.
So finally that border wall is up.
And so no one wants to come here.
No one wants to come here, and no one will let us go there. So we're all stuck here now. But we need to be vigilant and understand that we're still in the first wave of coronavirus.
I have a feeling that actually first and second wave are going to kind of meld together, because I think we get these spikes, which we're calling spikes, but I think they're mini waves, because these spikes that happen don't seem to go down. I think of a spike, you got one day and then you're back.
Right.
And these continue. And for instance, Los Angeles, where I live most of the year, was fairly low for a while and then went back up, and everything had to shut down again.
Right. And California's tough. I mean, it's tough to include California because it's, the size of Italy. Its economic output is the size of Italy. It's a variety of communities that are all put together under the banner of California. So it's hard to look at that state as an emblem. I mean, I think Georgia's in a tough spot with Governor Brian, who's now saying will allow businesses to not enforce masks. I don't understand. This is what I don't understand about conservatives. Shouldn't they be conservative? Shouldn't they be conservative about the disease? Shouldn't they be saying, let's take all the proper precautions because we're conservative and we want to be careful? And I don't think that these conservative governors and Republican governors are doing a very good job supporting small businesses. Why are you leaving your businesses hanging out there? The federal government has given no guidance to businesses on how to open. And governors like Brian Kemp in Georgia are basically saying, okay, your minimum wage worker who's risking his or her life to be there now has to put up with the Karens of the world in order to try and keep them safe. And I think that's just unfair and anti-conservative and anti-Republican, frankly.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that I'm in Medford. I don't say it usually, but I am in Medford. Born in Somerville. And Somerville has been one of the most conservative communities since the beginning.
Revere, who voted for Trump. Big Trump voting city, Revere, Massachusetts.
But Somerville had mandatory masks, and they were allegedly giving tickets all along if you weren't wearing masks. Now, I don't know how you necessarily enforce that, and I don't know anecdotally even
but it sends the message. That's the
tickets.
point, right? So that's the point about that you can't enforce it, and I think that's part of the reason why we've moved into sort of a phase 3 here in Massachusetts. There's only so much you can do without sending the National Guard out to keep people in their houses, which they did in the blizzard of 78 in Revere and surrounding areas. So, but it sends the message, and that's why it's been so problematic that finally President Trump decided to wear a mask, although everyone around him was wearing masks, because you have to send the message that we're serious about this, even if there's not a lot of stick when it comes to enforcement. Billy, this isn't our first pandemic, unfortunately. And people start dying. That's when you start taking it seriously. And unfortunately for people around the country who don't have leadership that's guiding them and telling them wear masks, stay in your houses, we're not out of this yet, they're not going to get the message until it's an unfortunate and tragic event in their lives.
Well, I think you and I had talked to Gloria Allred about this a few weeks ago, and we had said, how can you enforce this? Is it a First Amendment right? Is it enforceable? And she, even though she is very much on the side of First Amendment, she also said that while somebody might want to fight this, she wouldn't want to be involved in that at all. And if Gloria Allred isn't going to take the case, you don't have much of a case.
Right. Listen, if we make you wear shirts and shoes to businesses and ask people to take hats off and do all sorts of things, you can wear a mask. It's just the polite thing to do.
Well, not only that, I was talking to somebody recently and they said, it's a First Amendment right. You're infringing on my personal being and whatever. And I went, I have a one word for you, seatbelts.
You're right.
Now, I don't know. People kind of accept that. People get tickets for that. I do not. Now, I personally do not remember scores of little infants becoming projectiles through windshields. I know it happened occasionally, but it was for a myriad of reasons. But they use that as, protection, safety, and people do it.
Yeah.
So why is this any different?
I don't know. I mean, there's a recent report that came out that said that people who have limited cognitive ability are also the same people who aren't wearing masks. Except for young people, I mean, I put them in a category, anybody under 30, I sort of understand, right? But if you're over 30.
Under 30?
Yeah, I think I keep running into a lot of young adults, mostly male, really, that aren't wearing masks. And I mean, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. They're also riding their motorcycles without helmets on in New Hampshire. I understand all of that. I think you spend the first half of your life risking your life, and then the last half trying to conserve it, right? The older I get, the more safety concerned I get. But I don't understand anyone over 30 not wearing a mask. I really just think you're a menace. How about that? You're a menace.
All right, be a menace. It's fine. You and I were talking about Provincetown.
Yeah.
And I had written a piece in my column, which of course people should always read, on BillyMasters.com. They have the banner.
Or baywindows.com. You can go to
Or Bay Windows, all right, fine. No, I really shouldn't say all right, fine, because you're one of the few papers that is still actually publishing.
Right, sending you a check every now and then.
And published throughout the pandemic, I might add.
Yeah.
So I had showed this picture. This was the boat slip last year on 4th of July weekend. Okay?
Yeah.
Here is the boat slip this weekend, 4th of July weekend, exact same place. So I applaud Provincetown. They also have, and I was trying to look for a picture, I don't have it, but they have these ambassadors. I don't know if they're paid by the city or the Chamber of Commerce or who, or just volunteers, but they're ambassadors. They walk down the street with the satchel with single-use, individually wrapped face masks, handing them out to people. Now, over 4th of July weekend, because I was there literally for 24 hours, because I was really bored, but 24 hours, I saw everybody, for the most part, was wearing masks. Mm-hmm. Masks were mandatory on Commercial Street. For those of you who don't know Provincetown, there is really one main street. That's it. And it is a single lane street. So you're very close regardless. Masks were mandatory from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at that point. They have now, as of this week, become 24-hour. Within Provincetown, you must have masks on in public at all times.
Yeah, I mean, here in Boston, the Sam Adams Brewery at Faneuil Hall, they're closing because they can't manage the out of Massachusetts people coming to the bar. So, Massachusetts, like a lot of states like New York, are now starting to look at who can we keep out. Maine still is requiring Massachusetts residents to quarantine for 2 weeks if they go to visit Maine, although surrounding states are not. So
I have a friend that was in Maine this week. So to check into a hotel, you must bring proof of a COVID negative test.
Right. And let's remind everyone that had we been doing what New Zealand was doing in February, we would have a testing system that works quickly and gives us good results in a timely manner. And we don't have that because the president wasn't paying attention. So to get a COVID test, it might take you 2 weeks. To get the test results, which is the quarantine time in Maine, and also it's worthless after 2 weeks because who knows who you've been exposed to.
It's worthless after 2 hours if you go shopping and around people. I will tell you, and I told people on Tuesday. So my mother on Tuesday made me help her find a place to be tested. She said, "I think I've got COVID." I said, "Why?" She said, "I've got the sniffles and I'm tired." I said, "Then I've had COVID for 50 years. But we found a place. She went yesterday, got her test. Now, again, private insurance, I will point out. She got a test. By the time she got home, there was a message telling her she was negative.
Great.
So this is...
Yep.
And but bearing in mind, also, we don't know how accurate any of these tests are. There is no standardization for it. And there's so many different tests, the nose, the spitting, the antibody, which they don't know what that means.
The testing part of this, when all is said and done, You can look at every pandemic. When you look at the HIV/AIDS pandemic, it was the lack of response from the federal government for years at all to the HIV/AIDS epidemic. To this pandemic, it's going to be a lack of response for 4 months around testing. And that's what we're going to be very critical of, and we should be now.
I also mentioned this on Tuesday, but I think it bears repeating. I was texting with a friend of mine who lives in Australia last week, and he's in Melbourne, and I asked how he was doing, and I don't have it right in front of me, but what he said was, well, it's been very up and down. We were doing well, but we've now had a surge. There were 250 cases in a week, so we're all back in lockdown. I said, 250 cases a week is a surge to you? We've got, in Medford probably has had that many people.
Right.
We're talking about.
But remember, this is reactive. I mean, this is what we're going to be living in until there's a vaccine that everyone can get. Is the reason we say something went viral is because it's modeled on how a virus spreads. So if 250 people have it, it could exponentially increase very quickly over 30 days. I mean, there's always that great statistics class lesson. Well, would you rather me give you $1 million on July 1st, or would you like me to give you $1 and double it every day throughout the month? The correct answer is I'll take the $1 and have you double that amount every day for a month. And that's what happens. That's how viruses spread.
And it's like that shampoo commercial. See, you did the smart analogy, and I'll go shampoo person. I told 2 people, and they told 2 people. And so, see, the virus is like Pantene. This is how you get the hard talking analysis.
Here you go. This is it. You're into Billy Masters Live. This is
okay.
it.
So now going back to 4th of July. So now you and I we showed Provincetown. I'd like to show now.
Good job,
yes, but I will also not completely because last weekend, here is a picture. I hate to say it, but we went from the boat slip. Now this is the Provincetown Inn. Are they an advertiser?
No.
Right. I know. Okay. Now that does not look like they're socially distancing, and I don't see a mask in sight at the pool at the
So I'll say this about the outsideness part. Like we've been at Crane Beach in Ipswich, up in Gloucester rather, and their guidelines are that if you're on your blanket or in the water or walking to and from, as long as you are, I think they're 12 feet apart, you don't need to put a mask on.
Okay.
Because you're outside, you're at the beach, and that picture's right on the water. For folks who don't know, that's right along the water.
Right. Absolutely.
But if you're milling around or walking to and from the beach to the parking lot, you need to wear a mask. So, that one, that's a little on the edge there for me because it looks like there was separation between people. I don't see any masks, but I hope that they're adhering to some sort of physical distancing rule.
Okay, now let's look at Fire Island from 4th of July. We have a little clip.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
And that went viral, as we all know. And that was the same weekend that there was nobody in Provincetown, because apparently they all went to Fire Island. And we also had those anecdotal situations of people saying, I had COVID and now I'm here and I'm not wearing a mask.
Right. And there was a lot of Instagram posting. If you geotag, you can see what was happening in Fire Island as well as some other resort locations. Look, I know I saw one, I didn't verify it, but I think it was true. One person who said, look, that's my hairdresser who's in that picture. I'm not going to this hair salon, and I'm telling everyone that she was out without a mask with a group. This is the hard part, right? These are the young people that I'm talking about. They look like most of them are under 30.
Sure.
Billy, we spent years handing out condoms to people, trying to talk them into not having sex without protection, talking about safer sex lessons. It took years, and people, they were actually dying. This message is a little harder because a lot of these people think they're not going to die from it, and statistically, they're probably not. Right. And trying to get them to care about another person who they may not ever even know is a really hard sell. And I talked to a friend today who was kind of on the edge, and I said to him, I think we need to focus on the success here. In 6 short months, we've really changed people's behavior dramatically. The overwhelming majority of people are complying with, at least here in Massachusetts and in some of the bigger cities, with wearing masks and social distancing. That's a major success. I don't think that we've ever seen this amount of a change in behavior in history of human behavior. So we should celebrate that success. And I would say to people who aren't wearing a mask and who think they're not going to get it, how would you feel if you really found out that you spread it to someone you loved and they died from it, or they had these long-lasting organ implications? We're learning that this isn't really a respiratory disease, the coronavirus. It's a blood disease, and the blood is in all of your organs. People are reporting cognitive delays afterwards, heart issues. We have no idea what the long-term impact of even a mild COVID infection would be in the long term. So I would just say to people, how would you feel if you were responsible for someone getting sick that you knew? And is it really worth, a night on Fire Island? And that would be the message I would say. But I think for the rest of us, we also just need to focus on the success we're having in compliance.
It depends how hot the guy is on Fire Island.
That's always the case.
But I would even throw in, how would you feel if you found out you had it and you were responsible for a stranger dying?
They don't.
Dying. I know, but
that's why people speed. This is why the secondhand smoke issue is such. People don't care. I had somebody say to me once when we were talking about climate change, well, what will your grandchildren think, your great-grandchildren? And she said to me, I think that it's psychotic to care about people who aren't born yet. And I thought about it for a minute. I was like, that's an interesting thought, like to care about the future. To care about people you don't know is a hard turn for a lot of people, and obviously. So, I think the message is you just need to care about the people that you do know. How would you feel if you were speeding down a street and you hit a little kid on a bike? How would the kid do? You don't care because you're speeding in the beginning. How do you feel? How would you feel your whole life if you hurt somebody else unintentionally? Well,
that's what I'm saying, right? Anyway, God knows you and I could talk this fun stuff forever. And by the way, I was down in Dennis, Massachusetts yesterday, and
in the Cape Cod area.
In the Cape Cod area, half an hour from Provincetown, but shuttered into a house with a college, with a grammar school friend who has also been quarantining, so we are safe. But we're turning channels, and all of a sudden she turns, says, "That's that woman from your show." That's what you're known as. That woman from my show.
I'll call Kathleen Turner and let her know what a boost it is to my career.
People now tell me that woman from Billy Masters Live. Exactly. Well, you and we are going to continue talking because our first guest is a first guest, because I don't consider you guests. You're like a co-host.
Just family.
Exactly. Our first guest is such a fascinating person. I had LaRue on last week, and we were talking about the documentary Circus of Books, named after the bookstore of the same name in West Hollywood, which currently is owned by LaRue, but was owned by a Jewish couple, straight Jewish couple, and the documentary was made by their daughter. And before I bring Rachel Mason on, I want to show a clip. This is a clip of her mother sort of giving a little tour of the shop. Take a look. I love her so much. I cannot even tell you.
What a great documentary. Come for the porn, stay for the family dynamic.
And it's on Netflix, so definitely watch it. But we now have the daughter of that woman, the director of the film, Rachel Mason. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi, I love you. You cut right to my favorite scene in the movie, or one of them.
You're well right. I've got a few clips that I put together, and I was watching. I always love watching the guests when I show a clip, and you were smiling. And at one point, you just kind of laughed at what your mother says. Oh, is that just? It seems to me that is just your mother.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of where I knew I had documentary gold there, because my mom just can't help herself, but she's a weird gay porn expert. And then on the one hand, acts like she's never seen this stuff in her life. And then on the other hand, like, she literally knows that Nude and Rude by Carl Stanton is not selling well this week. Last week it certainly was.
It's interesting to me too, just the disassociation that your parents both had about what it was that they were selling? Like they could have been selling paper clips, but at the same time, they were so entrenched in this gay community, in LA at a time when, during the AIDS crisis, especially, they were embracing the folks whose family was not had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we want to dive right into the heavy stuff, no, but it's true though. It's weird when this film came out during the pandemic, and you just brought up AIDS. I was watching this. I honestly, it's been the craziest thing with this movie. If you believe in God and heaven, there were gay angels watching over this movie, because every little thing that happened was weirdly like something that seemed like profound. And so this movie hitting when the whole of the straight world is getting to know what it feels like to experience an epidemic was so weird to me, because, a big part of my reason for making this film was that I was a kid during the AIDS crisis, and I only had that recognition later of, wow, those guys, all of whom were like Alaska. They were the funniest, coolest. I mean, I was the world's biggest fag hag at age, the minute I realized what that store was, I loved all of it. I was always a big part of queer culture without even sort of understanding till I got older how amazing it was. And then suddenly recognizing, oh my God, all those guys died. All of them who were amazing, creative, funny, handsome. They were just at the height of their everything. And my parents, when I would talk to them, they would have these heartbreaking stories like, well, their parents got rid of them. And I couldn't even wrap my head around it. And just this thought of like, how is that Christian? How is that religious? How is there anything in that that's nothing, that's just not pure cruelty? And so for me, making this film was in some ways just a pure homage to all those people in not just the gay porn industry, of course, but the gay community.
Well, apropos of that, I actually have a clip where your parents talk about this. And before I show it, what I find, again, there's this duality that goes on. On one hand, it's like 1 minute this person was there and then they weren't. And it can be very clear-cut business. And on the other hand, there's such empathy when they talk about the individuals. And I think that's what I came away from, that they, as a whole, they treated it as a business, but specifically, they have a connection. And here's your father talking about one of the people that he knew. I think that, again, it really shows that they had connection with the individuals. And as your father said, it had nothing to do with gay or not. It was this person or your son or whatever. And I think people who didn't live through the AIDS epidemic firsthand, seeing this can be really powerful. And as you said, probably a parallel to the pandemic is that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, is that 1 minute somebody is there and then they can be sick and gone that quickly.
And Rachel, I was struck in the filmmaking part of it we're big Avengers fans, big Marvel fans here in our household. Cool. And when we went to see Infinity War, I don't think I'm going to spoil it for anybody at this point, but the way that people died in that was they disappeared. And that so struck me in Avengers because I wasn't really paying that much attention, to tell you the truth, of the movie theater, but that really reminded me of how people died from HIV/AIDS. And that's a technique that you use as well in the film too.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I have to thank you for playing that section of the film, because even though I literally have seen it now probably 100 times, watching it through every stage, I cry every single time. And, if I have that reaction, other people do as well. And I think one of the things that I feel the proudest of actually in the film is that I spent a lot of time making that section be as powerful as I possibly could make it by doing what you just noticed. I also made sure that each and every one of those people that you see fading out was an actual porn star, and somebody that wasn't just, a random person. Those were really important people in the moment in the history, including, a drag queen, Karen Dior. And,
right.
There were
who shared a birthday with me, by the way.
Oh my God. See,
All
We
roads lead-
celebrated many times together.
all roads lead to Billy.
Well, I'm just saying, Kathleen Turner.
well, I do have to say everything does intersect with gay porn. I have a very gay porn centric worldview now. So, but
Well, it was so interesting how you really tied the bigger issue of the store, of your parents' store, which really is sort of the focus of this, as also a time capsule, because you're telling the story of a time and of a community and of a specific city, which I live in and I'm proud to live in, and an era. So, I mean, you really accomplish an awful lot, and also telling your siblings' stories, which are just as powerful.
well, I mean, yeah, it's such a funny thing to talk about this movie because you can go into like 12 different almost categories of things to talk about. And, I am most passionate in some ways about the gay archival story. Like we were talking about this, what I had a recognition of, and this is many years of research coming into it, but also just my own personal love of the story. I was the only one in my family that had any real sentimental attachment to it. I loved the story. I understood its value. And weirdly, even my gay brother, he just was more like, okay, cool. My parents are in this quirky thing. I want to go off and be an architect. And I'm the one who sort of, because I'm an artist and a filmmaker and in the culture of the world, I think had an understanding that what you guys don't realize, this place is special. It's very magical. And it's really something that if when I realized the store was going to close, that's when I knew I had to make this film, because I had always thought, okay, the store's always going to be there. And then, no, it's not. And when I realized, no, it's not, that's when I understood, okay, if this goes away, a chapter in LGBT history goes away. And an important centerpiece of that store was the fact that, I do think it being run by my parents, who were just as like, definition of the word ally as you can be, because they hired gay people. They never actually even questioned any of the morality. It wasn't something that even sort of came up, even though my mom was a total religious nutcase in some ways. She's extremely religious, and which is my thing. I always fought her on. But there's this thing where I think they were just great at business, and they also hired employees who were not just gay men, but transsexual, before it was in any capacity like in the world. I mean, they were very much outcasts in society, and that's who were surrounding the store. So I grew up in that environment, and then became immersed in gay culture later and understood, wow, okay, this place was so special.
It's funny, when I was watching it, I thought, on one hand, what you're saying, that you really wanted to show that and share that story. But it really seems to me, as I watch it, that it also seems very personal, that you're trying to understand your parents, that there were a lot of questions regarding the business that a kid doesn't ask, and that you want to share their story, but you also want to know it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the story has so many twists and turns in it that were really strange, because my mom was always, the classic Jewish, nothing's ever good enough mother, who basically had the heavy stick of religion on me, and I rebelled against her the entire time. And so when I finally came to making this movie, we have a lovingly combative relationship where
oh yes.
So in a way I can poke and prod her and she just fights back, and that's our situation in life. And I love my mom, but she's Karen Mason, she's a force. And my dad's just in a strange way, I guess I wanted to say this earlier, but my dad is kind of like the Buddha, the like Christ-like guy. And so strangely enough, there's this quality to his voice that tempers my mom in the most sort of poignant moments in the film, which is the one that you brought up, which is also the voice of like that mild-mannered straight guy who is sort of the voice of reason. So when his statement, these were just nice people, it just that when he made that line in there, I feel like that goes to the heart of the Christian right being like, oh, we need to condemn these people because they are X, Y, and Z. And my mom, right. I needed to dig out that thing that to me is ultimately like my biggest fight in the world, which is, I really feel like LGBT rights and religion and the right wing need to be fought against in a way where you can actually untangle it. And so the best ambassadors to deal with that are not the people like me waving our freak flags and hanging out with RuPaul's drag queens. It's the people like my mother who are conservative looking, and my dad who are just like this guy who can say, I don't understand why you guys are not showing up when your child is sick and dying. Like, something about that seems not Christ-like to me, and my mom saying, well, actually something about this biblical passage here, when there's thousands of passages that talk about a million other things, doesn't really say what you thought it said about gay people. And I'm a Bible believer, and I still love the Bible. And, it's just, that is what I wanted to sort of get, teased out. But yeah, to get into the family side of this story.
Yeah.
I had this whole thing where with my little brother that I didn't recognize his struggle at all. And I realized as I was making the film, I was just going to focus on my parents and focus on all the different twists and turns and how, from going from delivering hustler and my dad was sort of like a failed inventor, even though he was pretty much able to do this thing. It just, all these things led to them being the biggest distributors of gay porn, working with Jeff Stryker. But then on the flip side of it, I was thinking about my life as an artist and a person. I identify as queer. I've had female and male partners, and I've just, I'm somebody that exists in the spectrum of queerness. Yeah, my lover is a transsexual man, and I've always been this person who embraces and loves the gay identity. And Josh, my little brother, was that, but he was trying to be normal. And for me, part of what I loved about gay culture was how John Waters' freak show it could be, and these are the freest people in the world who can do whatever they want. And as an artist, I was so drawn to that. And I felt like these were the most creative, interesting people. But Josh, my brother, was such a conservative, boring kid who I didn't have any space for. And when I recognized he was just so struggling being a little gay kid at a time when the only gay people on television were just made fun of and ridiculed. And I just couldn't believe that in that conversation, he revealed to me that he thought that he would have to get a one-way ticket when he came out of the closet, and things like, his struggle was so profound. So for me, recognizing that even within a family as seemingly gay friendly as ours, you could still have the conflict of religion and the conflict of trying to prove yourself to an overbearing mother, just burned into a little gay child's psyche. And that's what I feel actually also like the most proud of that scene in the interview with my brother Josh, because it was really, I think what I feel like is in that scene is the two almost polar opposite sides of gay culture. There's the RuPauls, and then there's the Pete Buttigieg's. And Josh is on the Pete Buttigieg side, and I'm on the RuPaul side. And when he said, Rachel, your world was too gay. And I thought, oh my God, Josh is surrounded by a bubble of too gay, and he just wants to be regular gay.
Well, and bear in mind that during this era, people were dying, and that people who were gay were dying. So I'm sure that played on him. He was a son, which is different than being a mother. And there is the point in the show when you guys do go to the store, your parents instruct you, look down, don't look at anything. So there is some shame there that he must have, as a gay person, responded to.
Definitely. And I think you hit on something that I don't know if it's an uncomfortable truth about coming out to a parent or just the culture itself, what was represented in the 90s. You saw the gay son getting thrown out of the house. And Josh literally said that. He said, I pictured the gay son getting thrown out of the house by the dad. And I'm like, but our dad? I mean, our dad, and yet that's what he saw. And also our culture had the most profound shaming of the gay men that got AIDS that you could imagine. And so that's what, to get back to what we were originally talking about, I just feel like what the straight world is experiencing right now is like, this is what a pandemic feels like. Imagine the government not caring and you getting sick and being ashamed for it and condemned for it, and your family not showing up for you. So that's what the gay community felt. And I really, when the film came out, COVID hit, and I just had this sense that it really felt to me like, oh my God, this film is coming out at a time in order for the rest of the world to know what it felt like, because the gay community felt that. And I think you're right. That played a big part in my mom saying, well, gosh, I wonder if God is cursing me for having a gay son, because she said that coming off the heels of burying many gay employees who she did love. These were people that she and my dad really cared about.
Speaking of your relationship with your mother, there are lots of little moments during the documentary that it comes out. It's a very complicated relationship. She's supportive, but she's critical. She'll help you, but she'll tear you down. And let's see, which clip do I like? Oh, I like this one. Okay, take a look at this. Yeah, that wasn't actually this exact clip that I wanted, but I mean, again, showing the layers of them and you kind of realizing, who are my parents?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it was so like not, it didn't align. It really was. You know, here I would go home and my mom would be like, okay, did you finish your homework? And you're going to Hebrew school. And I'd say, I hate Hebrew school. I don't want to do it. And, I mean, literally like all the classic things. And I had to have a bat mitzvah, and I wasn't going to just get away with like reading a few lines from the Torah. I had to read like the whole entire section in Hebrew that was like way more intense than any of my other friends. And somebody has pointed out to me recently, like, well, do you think your mom was like overcompensating? And I had the realization, like, wow, why did we have to get such hardcore, all this stuff? And I do wonder if there was a level of like, okay, you kids better be especially good because, we're hiding this big, unfathomable, shameful secret.
Did you feel like they were hiding? I mean, that's the other interesting, because I think there's always this layer of, if you have relationships with your parents and you find out that they had a life before you that is very interesting, in your case, while you're a kid, it's shocking because you see your parents through one lens and then you realize that they actually had a life that they're living. But do you feel like it was a secret, or they just compartmentalized it? I mean, what was the message that you think all the kids got from their owning this iconic LGBTQ lighthouse while you're trying to get your homework done and get ready for your bat mitzvah?
Do you know, it's so funny because I grew up in Hollywood. So my friends had really cool parents who would talk about, their work on sets or I mean, I had friends whose parents were stunt people who just had cool stories, and like actors, producers, writers, I mean, musicians, they were doing cool things. And weirdly, my parents were kind of doing something that I would have totally thought was cool, being part of the counterculture. But my mom would be like, well, we don't have anything to do with that. We don't really know Jeff Stryker. He just shows up. That's sort of like, they really were on the business side. And I would say that the actual ins and outs of their work was very mundane, like truly like invoices, payroll, collecting inventory, putting it in stock. I mean, yes, it was a fascinating cultural environment, but I think my actual parents' day-to-day was as boring as any other store, really. And if they could make gay porn boring, they found a way to do it, because it was, I remember, they would have stacks of invoices on and I actually worked in the office one time, like filling out all of the different filing cabinets. I realized later I was writing names like Catalina, Raging Stallion. That's my handwriting on the actual thing when I was a teenager. I didn't know what any of these production companies were. But it was boring, and I got really bored, and I didn't do a good job, and I was just a classic, ornery
kid.
Yeah. So it just didn't connect with a fascinating, fun world. But my friends' parents, I was always very jealous. They had really cool stories, and they were passionate about their work.
I'm just going to sort of give some of the bullet points because we've skipped over things, but your parents did not go into this saying, boy, let's open an adult bookstore. Your mom was a reporter, a very intelligent woman. Your dad, as you said, had been an inventor, had tried numerous things, got involved with an opportunity, depending on which parent you talk to. It sounds like your mom saw the ad that Larry Flint had an opportunity for somebody to distribute, and you should do that. Okay, so we'll do that. Then, through means that you kind of gloss over, took over the bookstore because the guy was not necessarily paying the rent and making it work. And your father and mother saw an opportunity and grabbed it. And you couldn't have planned these steps. And yet, look where it ended up.
Totally. It was a weird confluence of circumstances. And yet, when you think about it, I actually, funny enough, got in touch with the children of the original owners after the movie came out, and they, I said, did I get it right? I felt bad that I might be saying like your dad was like a cokehead, but word on the street, and everyone said the same thing, that he lost the business. And I mean, wow, what a massive loss for their family. My family, I took it over, but what was he like? I was really curious about that, and they told me you pretty much got it right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that there's sort of rumors about the old owners, the original owners, but the actual business in the early days, the porn industry was mobbed up. It was connected to, the really nefarious sides of things. A lot of people were involved in drugs, and it was a pretty like dark, seedy industry. And here come these, wholesome Karen and Barry Mason that show up and like take it over. And, there were real like, death threats against them. They were like, who are these people? And so my dad describes that like, going to court and, basically getting the judge sort of throw the case out because my parents legitimately took over the lease. And so,
there were a lot of legal issues because, again, I think people forget today the porn was illegal in certain states. And so when you're shipping things out, if you get caught, they were taking a huge risk.
Gay porn, especially homosexual.
Especially gay porn.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, when I spoke to my parents' attorney, who represented the people that made Deep Throat, he also represented Larry Flint. His name's John Weston. And, my parents basically, my mom even says, if we didn't hire John Weston, we would probably have gone to jail. And John is like the top First Amendment attorney for anyone in the industry. And he said to me, he looked me right in the eyes when I was interviewing. He said, Rachel, I didn't have any confidence that your parents weren't going to jail. He said, really? I lost a bunch of cases just like this, where people sent things, over state lines. And I'm looking at this, and, here it is, 2017, when I was interviewing him, and the actual VHS that would have thrown them in jail for like 3 to 5 years were the most benign, ridiculous, almost vanilla VHS porn tapes. These are things with like scenes and dialogue. Today's like, video cams are just like, hey, what do you want me to do? And I just was like, wow, the time's changing, and this kind of quaint, antiquated situation. It was so fascinating because I also wanted to intercut it with that, the right wing perspective that pornography destroys the family. And here I'm talking to the lawyer who was like, well, your dad would have had to go to jail. And, when I think about it, I'm like, well, that would have destroyed my family.
Yeah.
They would have destroyed my family. And what, do kids who have pornographer parents not count as family? I had a family, and my mom was trying to raise us religious. If anything, we were closer to what the religious right is saying looks like a good, solid, wholesome family. And here, the work that they're doing to destroy our family was central to their plan.
It's kind of like what Sue was saying earlier, that, conservatives are conservative when it suits their needs, but when it's not the right kind of conservatism, goodbye.
It's so fascinating to look at that as well when they say, the government should stay out of, conservative, the party line is that they keep the government, away from us. And yet they're the ones who get the most involved. I mean, then stay out of my bedroom and why do you care who I'm with? I mean, it's so fascinating that there's this, and also just look at who the president is. Really? Does that guy uphold Christian family values? I mean, wow. It's so interesting, like how you, the bedfellows that happen. But I think we do have to figure it out. To me, it's like a puzzle. Like, what is the way through? And, they just have a very well-oiled machine to take down the LGBT, community. We've fought for all these rights and women's rights. Really, like, I see the two as being like locked in, hand in hand right now, and they're just on the chopping block. And I'm really just trying to figure out, okay, let's stay calm in our, queer community insanity that is fracturing in and of itself sometimes. But like, let's fight this enemy right here that just wants to destroy us. And I think that that's what my film kind of, I hope it's actually takes us back to that time when the community was more unified and it's a more clear cut situation. Like, we have to fight for these rights that generations died for and we're still barely getting. And let's not lose sight of the fact that we have this very powerful government that can take it all away very easily.
Sue, you follow most of this stuff better than I do when it comes to the legality of this.
Yeah.
How risky was what their parents were doing, or in terms of really how did it help the movement by doing it?
Well, it was incredibly risky. I mean, I don't think you can undersell how risky it was. As you mentioned, it was illegal to mail pornographic materials, and especially gay pornographic materials, over many state lines. I mean, that just operating the store itself could be a violation. And you might be thinking, well, it's free speech, but the definition, Larry Flint, who you can love or hate or find some medium from, was a firm believer in free speech and fought for many of the free speech rights that many people enjoy, whether or not you agree with the way he did it or not. He was a firm believer in making sure that people had the right to express themselves regardless of whether you agreed with them or not. They had an enormous risk that they were taking just by existing. And from the community standpoint, we didn't have the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to go, if you were closeted especially, and you wanted to go meet other gay people, one of the places you could go was to a bookstore to meet mm-hmm. people. And not only just for romantic or physical interludes, but also to connect a community. And it wasn't just gay bars and nightlife that was a connectivity. This is also where newspapers were distributed. Gay newspapers, you could find them. Now you go to Stop and Shop, and Bay Windows isn't a Stop and Shop. Right. You can go around and pick a gay newspaper up in all of the regular retail outlets. But in those days, the few places you could go to get a gay newspaper and therefore be connected to your gay community was in the bookstore. So, the role in launching the civil rights movement for the LGBT community is directly connected to porn, to gay bars, and to bookstores. So it can't be undersold.
Rachel and I were talking about this backstage before we started, and there was a scene in the documentary that speaks directly to what Sue was just saying. So I want to show this. I got so many clips here. We might as well show the whole movie, but hopefully these are clips that are going to make you go out and check Netflix Circus of Books. Here's a clip about your mother is getting ready to shut down the store. And I keep saying your mother. It is your mother and your father, but your mother seems to be the driving story narrator. And so she doesn't, there are some things she just throws away because she just has to empty the store. But there are other things that she thinks have some value. So take a look at this clip.
What's wrong with you, Rachel? You're doing the wrong thing. Come on.
It's the ultimate vengeance when you make a documentary. You can basically say, well, yeah, keep saying that because I am making a documentary about this by making a documentary about you.
But it's so funny. There's this dichotomy where she's saying, if you don't, this is just junk. But then she's like, this is important, but it's junk, but it's important.
Well, I was really struck with what Sue was saying a minute ago before the clip, was this the risk that people took? And I do think my parents were in the lineage of the risk that people took. And that's kind of what I was trying to say, is that gay culture, when I started this project, I took a gay and lesbian studies class when I was a student at Yale back in 2004. And I brought up the fact that my parents owned this store, and that the professor said, Rachel, that store is actually part of gay culture because we have an unwritten culture.
Mhm.
There is no above ground documentation of all the stuff that was happening. You have to do something about this store because it's written in the erotica, it's written in the porn, it's written in the books that you only found in those stores, and it's also written in the culture of those stores. So I really was struck. Thank you, Sue, for saying that, because I think when I talk about circus of books, there were many circus of bookses all over the world, and it's the people, whoever the hell they were, who were amazing and running these stores because they were taking a risk. And I feel like that's kind of what my purpose of this film was, and also other films that are doing a similar work right now. There's another film called A Secret Love on Netflix. There's just other films that are kind of exploring the untold stories of the elders who, if we don't get them now, they're going to go away. And that's the history that is just unwritten because it was not allowed. So,
well, I think what you're also getting at is that, Jewish people have Jewish children and they pass it on.
Mhm.
Black people, Italian people, whatever, your heritage is passed down. Sexuality is not necessarily passed down. And so we find each other, and I have friends who have introduced me when I was young to like Bette Midler and things like that. It's an oral history. I mean, sometimes it's a rectal history, but mostly it's an oral history. And I think that if you don't share those stories, they are in danger of being lost because those people are dying out.
Right, and we're a chosen tribe, which also makes the challenge of it. I mean, my kid really doesn't. She loves Billy, of course, because she's known as a baby. But she really doesn't care, right? So what?
Well, why would she? Right.
Right. It's not, just like I didn't care about my parents' things that didn't impact me. So it's important to share that story. And I also want to pay tribute to your parents as business people. It's not easy to run a business under any circumstances, and especially under the circumstances that they were in. And their, I think, natural curiosity, both as an inventor and as a journalist, that's a curiosity that can serve you well if you're a good business person. And I think that their ability to survive and succeed and provide for y'all, it's a tribute to them. And I think it's so wonderful that you made this.
Well, thank you. And, I will say, maybe to wrap it up, is just that I do think, as a culture, like you're saying, we might not have a lineage that is blood, but we are this sort of family that we choose, and also that we can look up to. So I fully look at people like elders, when you say these are elders in the community, like Marsha P. Johnson, or, people who you can say they were the grandparents of us in some way. And I think it's a really important way that the LGBT culture has created its own family lines that in some ways might be deeper than bloodlines.
Yeah, I think that there's a point in the documentary where where your mom comes to the realization, because we should point out they weren't doing this philanthropically. They weren't running a nonprofit. They were providing for their kids.
Somebody had to pay for the Hebrew lessons. Okay,
right, exactly.
And they were also excited about the challenge of business. My mom is a total, ball-busting businesswoman.
Oh God!
So that's why it was also kind of funny to me, is that I've never met a bigger gay porn expert than my mother. She knows every producer, every company. She'll know exactly, where they're based. Bijou. Oh, he's in Chicago. He used to be in Florida, and this and that. Like, they know everyone in the industry. And I think it's part of just the challenge and the excitement of the business. So that's what they were passionate about.
And the sadness that at this point, it was time to let it go, that it had served its time and it was all they could do. And here's a clip of your mom kind of realizing that, and that the world has changed. So just take a look.
Classic line.
Oh, But
My mother once said to me, I was hosting the Human Rights Campaign dinner, and it was the biggest dinner, and she was there with me and everyone. This is like 1993, and people said, "You must be really proud of her." She said, "We'll see how tonight goes." I totally make them up. We'll see.
In the same sentence, your mom can talk about how important it is, but who cares? And it's a psychological issue, but why are you filming it? I mean, the fact that she has these two parts of her brain at war with herself, do you think, is that how she is on all subjects? Is she somebody who really can argue both points?
I think so. And I also think there's this sort of, I don't know if it's a Jewish value or if it's a thing of like, don't ever get too full of yourself. Like, don't think that you're going to ever do something that important. Like, because you know what, someone else is going to come. I don't know, this idea of like, just, she said to us, I said, why are you always, can you not find, any little thing that was happening? Like at one point she got a standing ovation. We were doing this presentation. I mean, at Frameline in San Francisco, and the audience really like gave an amazing standing ovation. I've never had anything like this in my life. 5 minutes. I mean, it was just shocking, like screaming. And my mom was like, "God, can't they sit down already? What is wrong?" I'm like, "Mom, you can't criticize a standing ovation. That is just a good thing." Like, and yet I was like, you know what? Okay, she'll be able to find flaw with anything. So I had, I have my own back and forth where I get annoyed, but then I realized, okay, she has to, in her way, I think, bring it down a notch, because there's this idea of like, just don't, like Sue, your mother too, like, well, we'll
the nail that stands the highest gets hit the hardest with the hammer.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. It comes out of a place of like fear of rejection and, don't ever, so. Yeah.
How have they dealt with now? It's over. The store closed. And Shishi at the last minute ended up buying it, and it's become Shishi LaRue Circus, which is great. It's not the same, but it's at least carrying on. And as your mother says, changing the lineage of it, you have to adapt your businesses, but not working and not being there every day. How are your parents doing?
Well, they're good. That little boy in that last clip, he's my son, and he's 8 now.
Wow.
He was like 3 when I shot that, and they love being grandparents.
And likes cottage cheese.
Yeah. So and they actually own the building, so they always have things that are needing to be done, and I don't know that they'll ever retire. And their really big job, if you could say it, is that they are serious activists in PFLAG. And I mean, and there's not a week that goes by which is not spent folding up pamphlets, sending something out. I mean, they do the not glamorous work of recruiting parents that they feel like could really use the help of PFLAG. And I just, that to me is a pretty impressive thing. I'm not that good of a activist. I could just make a movie. I can't really, it's so boring, the stuff they do for PFLAG, but it's really, I think
someone has to do it.
Essential.
Absolutely. So that's their life now. And, as far as Shishi, I was also really glad that the store got taken over by at least another gay business. And it's also really great that it is a business that contains, the culture and the history of, the sex industry in it. And Shishi LaRue is an amazing, gay porn producer and of an older generation. So, I'll say a little side note. My partner is actually in the business too. His name is Buck Angel. Does that name ring a bell?
Oh, I know Buck.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, he'd be a great guest for you if you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Kathleen Turner. Maybe Kathleen Turner will say yes.
Yeah, sure. She could be with Buck Angel.
Well, if Buck comes on the show, there will be some people that will join on after, and some people that will say, maybe I won't go on the show.
What is going on now? And again, there's another fascinating story. Yeah. I mean, you're drawn to fascinating stories. Have you thought of doing a documentary about Buck? Because there have been films.
He has a great documentary on him. It's called Mr. Angel. And I did.
Right.
Well, I was going to say this, there seems to me like a part 2 in Buck's life that I'm witnessing right now. And it doesn't seem like it's in any way near its, moment to be yet done, but I could start documenting something for sure. But I will say this, as far as looking to the elders and the kind of found community, Buck has like 60,000 kids that he calls children, and they call him Trampa, because in that there's not many people that you can say, he's 58, live to be 58, know, how to be a grown up and be an elder. And he really cares about the kids. I mean,
and also can understand from both perspectives, the boys and the girls.
Totally. No, and he talks a lot about how, the trans dialogue right now is overrun by a certain opinion and not other opinions. And Buck used to be a female athlete. He was an actually top performing female athlete. Not many people know this, but he talks about how it wouldn't have been a fair fight had he had to be challenged by somebody that was of a male physique, even though he is a guy now. He's fully changed. So within the trans dialogue, there's lots of stuff that are uncomfortable truths that he's never afraid to speak out. And so that's why he's not the most popular guy at the moment in certain dialogues, but a lot of people who are, on different sides of the community really embrace his message. So
well, I had no idea you were going to be as fascinating as you are. So I just want to wrap up because we have run long, but of course I always run long. This is just the final sequence of your mother leaving the store and closing up. So let's just run this. What I love in that clip is that when one of the employees says, I'll miss you. Oh, you go on to do other things. Like your mother just can't just say thank you or I'll miss you too, or be in that emotional moment. Yeah, whatever. But you can tell she feels it, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I think there's like not room for sentimentality. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
One of the last things that I'll close out with it, because it gives a point about how important that store was on the very last day. You can't pack everything into the movie, but I was just shocked at the level of outpouring that when people would walk into the store to say goodbye, it was really like they were saying goodbye, like paying respects to a dead person. And a guy came in with his U.S. Marine Corps hat on. He was an elderly veteran of the Vietnam War, and he just stood in almost like the hallway when you walk in at the front desk, and my mom was right there, and he just burst into tears. And he said, the happiest days of my life were spent in this store, and I just want to thank you. And he recognized my mother right away because her face was in the newspaper from, the LA Times wrote an article. He said, I really want to thank you because there was nowhere else to go. And somebody just told me I could come here. And, of course, my mom goes like, okay, well, that's nice, advice. And I'm like, Mom, let this man have his moment. So it was part of the dichotomy. That's why she ran a good bookstore. Maybe she didn't have room in her heart, but there was a moment. I think she was able to get some of it. And I think I was able to take the ice pick through to her cold heart and get.
What has the feedback been from her after seeing the finished product?
Well, she likes the movie. She thinks I actually did a really good job, but
thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But she's the only person in LA that's not happy to be famous.
Right.
She hates it. People recognize her and she'll be like, oh my God, like I have my mask on and my hat. Why are they still finding me?
I think you've done an amazing job. I think your parents should be very proud. I think you have great siblings. Oh, Jesus. We have before we go, we have a surprise guest who just popped in since we're wrapping it up. But the new owner of Circus of Books, Miss Shishi LaRue, is here.
Hi, Larry. Oh my God.
Hi, Rach.
I have to call Buck in right now to have a final guest.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Cece. How are you?
Oh my God. Hi, Rach.
So,
You're having this movie, doing all this stuff. Did you get Emmy nominated?
We better tell everybody. Okay. To all of our gay friends in the whole world, a win for Circus of Books.
Yes.
The entire gay community, I think, and everyone in gay porn who's a hero, like Shishi.
When do you hear if you got nominated?
July 28th.
You're on you are on the because I'm a voter. So I got a pre-nomination. You got on the list to be nominated, which is great.
So a pre-nomination, it's so weird.
Yeah, I know. You have to qualify to even be nominated.
The only ones that are eligible to be nominated. The ones
right, exactly.
Are you also Well, here's a question, Billy. Are you also able to vote for Oscars?
No, I'm not a part of that academy.
Okay, because
Sorry.
Thank God.
I can only get, I know, but I am, but
Are you eligible for an Oscar?
so Circus of Books is qualified for an Oscar.
Oh, did you have a theatrical run as well?
Well, get this. I'm telling you, gay angels were watching over this. As God is my witness.
I shall not want.
No, seriously, I couldn't really get the budget together to get the theatrical, and Netflix. You know, this film was a little gay porn movie that I was about a weird little Jewish family, and everybody was like, "Good luck to you." And now that Ryan at the end, Ryan Murphy saw the film, came in at the end and was like, "I love this movie. Put my name on it." And I said, "Oh my God, we're just about to do the credits. Do you want a condom box, a lube, or some poppers?" And he's like, "Put me on the condom box." I'm like, "Great." I throw his name on the condom box for the opening credits. And so go ahead, Shisha.
No, I'm sorry. Oh God, what was I just going to ask you? Oh yeah, to keep talking. I'm trying.
All I wanted to say was that now everybody has said to me, "Wow, Circus of Books was a film that had, the buy-in from Ryan Murphy and Netflix." And I said, no, it was not that way. It was me and a little intrepid crew, a dear friend in, Paris who actually donated some money. And I mean, it was really cobbled together. And Ryan Murphy put his big Hollywood name on it at the very end and then sailed it in. And now it's like on all of these amazing top platforms. But this was the little film that could. Everybody that I talked to when I was having meetings just to try to raise financing was saying the same thing. It's not just as a porn movie, it's a gay porn movie.
Well, Rachel, I always said that this movie started out to be something. And then it turned into something. Does that make sense? I say, you wanted to talk about this gay porn store on the corner of Santa Monica and
Sweetser.
And you wanted to talk about this porn store that this lovely Jewish couple owned and never wanted to talk about it. And your mother was embarrassed, and your dad was one of the most fabulous men in the entire world that took care of people that he didn't even know. And and then it went from being about things where you looked at a box cover with Jeff Stryker on it to being about it's really a family. Mm-hmm. It's really a family movie. It really is
for the family dynamic.
Well,
I just got chills. I thought where a family dynamic can come from. That there's so much in the world that can create a family dynamic, and this is the ultimate proof that this little store, not a little store, it was a big store, that turned into this beautiful family story. Everyone, your mom, your dad, your brother, the whole thing.
Well, I think Sue mentioned it earlier when we talked about the gay community, that we find our family and we find them in a bygone era in bookstores. And so the fact that your parents, they probably didn't realize how many people were part of their family. Even now, they probably don't know, but it's reaching even more people. So I think it's amazing. And it's amazing that she came in and will keep that legacy going, which I think is
the fact that their family lent themselves to be other people's families that didn't have families that needed a family.
Right.
And your family was right there for them at the time. I mean, just it chokes me up to think about your dad and to think about how wonderful he was to people and the things that he would just say, because you knew that there was nothing to be gained. So he was a true, kind man. When you do something because there's not an end game to it. Like I'm going to get money or I'm going to get a building. He just did it because he is a kind man.
He liked these people. I mean, he really liked them. And, it was so, what you're saying is that this was a moment too in our history. I look to you as an elder, Larry, and you're somebody that really paved this way. But at that moment, the younger generation doesn't realize that people were going to their deathbeds at age 25 being condemned. And my dad, in a weird way, stepped in as like a father figure-ish.
A surrogate father, sure.
anybody's dad. And he, I remember, I know it makes me choke up too, because I was a kid. I remember he would say he was going to a hospice, and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
We realized later, oh my God, he was visiting these kids that had nobody, and they came to LA, and here's this nice guy going to bring them something. And I mean, he didn't have to do it, but that's part of why I wanted to
where people were afraid to go and were like terrified for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were more concerned. They were concerned about themselves. And your dad didn't really even probably, I don't know what he thought.
No, he was a truly nice guy. And I actually feel like that's where, the film's activism lies, is that in showing, hey, to everybody that gave up on their kids because they were gay, at that moment, this is what it is to be a good parent. So, I appreciate that you see that. And
I think that's their legacy. And as you said, that their work now is with PFLAG. It's activism. They've been in every LA Gay Pride Parade. As we talked about earlier, they visited employees in the hospital who didn't have parents who were there for them. So I think really, while it's about the bookstore, it's really a testament to your parents and what they built and what they've let us share in the bookstore and in their children. So I think they should be very proud.
That's what I mean. I look at it and okay, it's a movie about a bookstore, but it really isn't. I mean, it's so funny that I say that. I think to myself, okay, it's about this place called Circus the Books, but really it's the circus of your life in your home. We all live in this circus that is traveling every day and dun around our heads, and I just got to Palm Springs. I was in Minnesota, and I've been living staying in Minnesota for March since I finished my last movie, and then went into quarantine and a pandemic. And so I just couldn't stand staying in my apartment anymore. So now my friend Damien, who used to do porn for me I discovered him back in like 1991.
Wow.
And we're still friends, and he's got this beautiful little house in Palm Springs, and I just needed to get away.
Well, so maybe we'll visit you because Buck has a place out there too, and he has a cannabis.
There you go. We're setting up a little visit.
So, okay, but we were all having to end this because I have to run out right now. But Shishi, expect a call from me. Okay.
Yes, great.
Definitely want to talk. Okay.
And,
love you.
Love you.
And to all of you, let me just say, let me close the damn show.
Yes.
I just want to do.
Always directing.
I want to point out just one funny thing in the movie. The shop was originally called Book Circus, and they decide to cut the sign in half and make it Circus, and we can get a little sign just off. Will be cheaper, and just flip it around. And I remember Shishi at one point, I'm probably going to tell this story wrong, Shishi, but there was you wanted to call a movie Bottom to Top. There's already a movie called that. Okay, From Bottom to Top.
Yeah, totally. And nowadays, people don't even give a flying fuck. They just name it. There's so many no-tell motel.
Yeah, right. Isn't there something like that? Yeah, whatever. Right. Guys, I could talk to you guys forever. Thank you also, Larry. Thank you for coming in at the last minute. I really appreciate it.
I was actually late. I thought it was 1:30, and
That's okay. That's why I texted you. It's fine.
And that's cool that you're in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Be safe. Be safe there. Please take care of yourself. Shishi, we love you. Rachel, thank you so much. Please give our love to your family, and I look forward to whatever else you do. Have Buck get in touch with me, and we'll set something up.
I'll put him in touch. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
I can see it now. It's going to be great.
Oh, God. And Sue O'Connell, my favorite co-host, my only co-host, who I kept here 45 minutes longer than I told her she would be. And, that's all right. If the kid is waiting on a street corner, somebody will pick her up. It's fine. Thank you so much, Sue. I love you. We'll have you back again in a couple weeks. Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
And everybody else watching, thank you so much for watching Billy Masters Live. I didn't even show comments, but okay, I'm just looking. Okay, what is this? I'm looking. Oh, all these people. Marga Gomez. Marga Gomez will be with us on Tuesday. So Marga will be there. So please make sure you watch. Ari Gold just said, what an amazing doc. So thank you, Ari Gold. All these people, my God, they all just love you. I see Rachel still watching. So, oh, and thank you, Jim. Billy, you're looking extra cute today. Well, thank you. You know, I think that's really, once you've said that, you've said it all. Thank you for watching Billy Masters Live. We will be back on Tuesday, 3 p.m. with Marga Gomez and other special guests. We will run long because that's what we do. But thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Wear a mask. Be careful. Be kind to each other. Oh, my God. Now I sound like Ellen DeGeneres. And just remember, if we're here, we're live. Bye-bye. Take care.